Shall we play a game?
We got one person online. The workload is enough for like 10 users. I think we got a hacker.
Shall we play a game?
What are they doing to him? Breaking into his mind. It's like hacking a computer. All it takes is time.
Red alert! All hands to man stations.
Hello, friend.
Welcome to Red Spy 365.
Shall we play a game?
Hey, I was going to do a talk on Discovery with Red Spy, but I thought, but someone's asked me a couple of questions and about certifications, and I think it's important to understand because, you know, I've got a lot of certifications. I mean, but I think it's easy to fall into the trap of, oh, it just comes easy. You know, another thing I've got to do is stop saying, you know. I went back through my old recordings. I was like, oh my God, I sound like one of those sort of airheads, you know. So I'm trying to articulate better. But certifications, I think people assume that it comes easy to some people. And maybe it does. But for certifications like, you know, the SANS GSE or the CCIE security, which I hold, it never came easy. It was really hard. I remember the CCIE security, I failed like 2 times, I think 3 times, but one of them was they changed the version, which if you understand in the CCIE world, when they change a version, it really does change everything that you've learned. And you've now got to sort of, I wouldn't say start from scratch, but you really have to address and go back to the beginning to a certain point. I mean, you still got that knowledge. When I finished the CCIE exam, when I passed it that time, I literally completed it with like an hour and a half to go. I was at what I consider the peak level at that point. You know, and it's interesting because it's like an athlete. You can only get to a certain level. You're only that peak at that level. And a lot of certifications are like that, especially the top certifications. It's very hard to maintain that peak alertness because a lot of times you'll see maybe your technical skills really maintain, you know, get to that level, and then they drop off maybe because you're moving into management or you're doing other things, and so your technical skills, you know, suffer a little bit. So looking at certifications that I have, like the SANS GSE, awesome exam. I love doing the SANS classes. I recommend them to anybody. One of the things I loved about the SANS classes is that no one holds back. Do you know what it's like when you go to a class and they're saying, you know, it's kind of, this is what you should do, and you go through anything, but it's not necessarily what they do. And that's the difference, I think, with SANS. You actually learn what the instructors do, what those guys do in their day-to-day business. There's nothing hidden from them. The secret sauce that they do is there. You know, they put it out on the table. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love the SANS classes, and that's why I continued and I've done the SANS GSE. I was, you know, 2 reasons why you do sometimes the GSE is that you have a lot of certifications, and you only have to take the GSE every 4 years to maintain all those certifications. So it becomes a force multiplier to study for that exam. You know, that's hard to do. Same with like the CCIE security, it recertifies all those ones below. And so you kind of, if you maintain the top level ones, it helps you maintain all those below. But achieving them, I always felt, even when I was doing, you know, people would say to me, what are you doing? It's like, well, I'm a CCIE candidate. I always felt like saying myself was a candidate, that I'm working towards something. I'm not a CCIE yet, or I'm not, you know, I wouldn't say I'm a CCIE written. I would just say I'm a candidate. I'm working on it. I'm getting there. This is my goal. But it really does require a lot of sacrifice. If you ever take some of the top certifications, I'm not talking about some of the paper certifications where it's just rote memorization. And those certifications are okay. I think they help you. Maybe they make you read the right things. Maybe they make you understand certain things. Maybe it forces you, you know, to go and take a certain course or understand certain technology. One of the things I liked about certifications to me was it forced me to look at something or learn something that maybe if I was reading it in a book, I would probably just glance over. I wouldn't be as interested. So certifications kind of forced me, and I tell you, with me, it was cryptography. It's funny because I was a communication technician in the Royal Navy, which, you know, you guys over here call a cryptographic technician, but some of the cryptography stuff was just so dull to me. I was like, man, this is like, you know, pulling teeth. But what I found was it made me focus. So certifications definitely made me focus on the stuff that I wouldn't necessarily have been that interested in. But it's kind of funny because you tend to only become interested in something when you're good at it. And I say that with you know, some humility, because when you start out, you know, and let me explain to you about me. You know, my background is I'm an ex-Royal Navy intelligence with a communication technician, CT brackets analyst. You know, to become a CT, it was very hard. There was a lot of courses. It was like 98% failure rate. Back in the day, and we always say back in the day, it was a lot harder. But it was a lot harder. You know, it was a lot of work, and I was examined quite heavily, and it was quite stressful. So from the age of about 19 onwards, you know, I've always been doing something like that. But I can quite honestly tell you, every time I meet someone, I always think they're smarter than me. I walk away going, oh man, it's not always the case, but I'll sit there and think, man, you know, they've got something that I wish I knew, or I wish I had more understanding in. And I think that probably drives me to do a lot of, you know, I don't achieve a lot more, to be honest, because I underrate myself very heavily, maybe correctly, who knows. But I do sit there and look and think, okay, what is it that I need to focus on, or what's the next thing, or what I've got to learn? Because every time you learn one subject, there's like 5 other subjects around it. And so you want to learn those other 5 subjects. And I think it's important to understand, especially with certifications in the IT industry, you want to look at 2 things. One, what you're interested in, but also, you know, what other things are around it. So if you're doing like a CISSP or a CISA, what other things are around those certifications? What might help you, like project management? Or, you know, when I remember, you know, back in the day, as it were, when it was so old. No, I mean, what I remember is that there wasn't, you know, the degrees out there wasn't cybersecurity specific. And even then, I still look at some of the college degrees right now, and it's sort of 90% learning French, history, Spanish, right? And it creates you as a great rounded person. But I think it gives you a mile wide and an inch deep. And it's just, you know, one of the reasons why certifications really became important was that there was no way to distinguish someone from another person. And it was always very hard. I think they've got a lot better now, but I still think that it's still that mile wide, inch deep. And I think you have to become a lifelong learner and not just, okay, done now, let's move on. Because I always use the analogy, you know, look, Shakespeare is not going to release 2.0 tomorrow. So if you're an English teacher, you should know pretty well Shakespeare, or, you know, I guess if that's your subject, or if you're an expert on Shakespeare, it's not going to change. Maybe viewpoints might change, but it's really not going to change that much. If you're in IT, what you know one year may be completely different the next year. You know, so sometimes it's like a level playing field. It gets wiped out and everybody gets to start again. That's the exciting part, I think. You know, it's, and I keep saying, you know, I've got to pick up on that. But the exciting part, I think, is that you can look at that and try and say, look, it's really a level playing field, except once you start learning and understanding, you get that background schemata so you can apply it to the new things. And you'll be like, oh, it's not that much different. It's changed here, changed there. So you start to get that background schemata, and the new stuff just feeds upon it. It's like layer upon layer. And you become more in depth as a security analyst. So certifications, you know, SANS GSE, absolutely awesome. Loved the journey. CCIE security, loved the journey. It was hard. You know, it was a hard exam. Still probably one of the hardest exams I've took. Now, I did love the other exam, which is like the OSCP. That was fun. Out of all the courses and stuff I've done, the OSCP is one of the few that you can sit there and wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go, I wonder if I can try this. And my wife will attest to that. That I'll be like, okay, I don't think I've tried this. And she's like, where are you going? I'm like, I've just got to try something. It's that it kind of hooks you. And so those exams are, you know, the certifications like that are really important to hook you in. the other sort of certifications, which is like CISSP, CISA, and they're more the mile wide, inch deep type ones. They give you that coating, they give you that depth, but then they're not as technical, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, because not everybody needs to be technical. Sometimes you need to be, have more project management skills. Really depends upon what you want to do as to what certifications you want to go into. So when I looked at things, I was a technical engineer, so things like CCIE security was the pinnacle of the Cisco stuff, and really, a lot of the CCIE stuff applied everywhere at the time. The SANS GSE, super great. It was really great. I loved sitting in a room thinking, all these super smart people, and I'm here. What's the odd one out? Obviously I'd think, well, it's just me. I don't know why I'm here. But the other ones, like the CISSP, CISA, as I said, they give you that mile wide, inch deep. So you kind of get a combination of both. But I've always found that if I enjoy the journey, and to be honest, I would rather try the most hardest exam or aim for the hardest exam you could possibly think of. It's kind of like, I guess, if I was going to join the police force, I'd want to be the FBI. I'd want to go to the pinnacle of whatever I could do and try out and be the hardest thing, because I've realized that all these people at the top aren't that smarter, than the average person. They're not none super genius. What they have is persistence and perseverance, and that accounts for probably 80% of it. That's not to say that everybody can be a fighter pilot. Some jobs you just have to have an aptitude for, but I think that the want to become something, the want to challenge yourself, people, I always look at the story of, when they do an SAS selection board, they'll do like this, 2 days marching, extreme walks. These guys are pushed to the edge, to the fatigue. And as they come to the finish, this finish line, they'll get there, and then the guys will turn around and say, okay, we're going to add another 10 miles to it. Now, in reality, it's just around the corner, the finish line, but they don't know that. They've just said, look, we're going to add another 10 miles. What they want to see is these guys that go, okay, right, I'm down, I've got to dig deep, I've got to dig deeper beyond before. So those guys that get up and say, okay. But there's some people that just go, you know what, I see it, I've gave it all, I can't do anything. And you got to understand that sometimes when you give up, you are literally that close. You're just that round the corner from it. And so for me, when I looked at certifications, it was really important to, one, aim for the top ones. You might as well. I mean, I always think, they say you shoot for the moon, fall amongst the stars. But really, it's understandable that a lot of people doubt themselves, because I think we're in a society where there's a lot of fakeness, there's a lot of front out there. But I can tell you quite honestly, I found more than I've passed. That's the journey. It's the journey is to get there. It's not the journey is in getting the certification, enjoying that path, enjoying learning those things. Because if you're not enjoying it, you probably either one shouldn't be doing it, or maybe it's just not cut out for you. Because you're always going to be on this journey, especially in pen testing or security, you're always going to be on this journey of learning. That's not to say that everybody's a ninja. I hate this term, everybody's a ninja. We got short of 4 million security personnel. Do you think we're going to create 4 million ninjas? No, that's ridiculous. If we had all these ninjas, security wouldn't be in the state it was. There's some great, it's like the other word you hear is it rock star? And I hate that term too. I don't think, there's some founders, I think, that have done some really interesting stuff with security, some great people. And they're still around. And that's really encouraging, because it'd be kind of depressing if you saw these guys that was at the peak and pinnacle now disappeared. You'd realize that you can only attain it for a certain level. But it is definitely, in kind of anything we do and in anything that we're aiming for, we've got to understand that it's going to be hard. There's going to be times when you're going to fail. You will fail. Sometimes just taking the exam just to learn what's on it or what you should be understanding kind of helps. But you will always be on that journey of learning. this is something that we always do. So certification wise, I've looked at it. What I tend to do is I used to look at what's the top 5 certifications in the world. What have I got to do? And then try and work out what's the top of those certifications. What are people looking for? Sometimes you can do that on job searches. Although it was quite interesting, when I got my CCIE security, I was like 1,800 in the US, and I went for a job interview, and the guy was like, "Well, do you have your was it CSSP at the time or CCSSP?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a CCIE security. I'm above that." But he was like, "No, we need a Cisco certified security professional." And I'm like, "But I'm a CCIE." Sometimes they just don't understand. They have this understanding of what they know and what they want and what their requirement is, but they don't understand sometimes the pinnacle of it. The other part is, don't just look at the certifications as the be all and end all, but work out what you can do in the industry, what you can create, where your weaknesses are. Like, my weaknesses is coding, which is why I've got coders to do things. I'm never going to be a 25-year Java coder. I employ a 25-year Java coder. If I started now, and 5 years down the road, I'd be a 5-year Java coder, and he would be a 30-year Java coder. I'm never going to catch up to that level. So surround yourself. If you've got your weaknesses, understand what your weaknesses are and find those strengths. And it's not impossible. But I also think as well, in our industry, we do, there is a big front put on, And I said, again. See, I'm trying to stop that. But one of the things I've noticed in our industry is sometimes it turns into a one-upmanship. And that's wrong. That's not doing the industry any service at all. But it's something that you'll see in the industry quite a lot. I'm at the point where I've got, I think, the top certifications in the industry, and I'm quite happy. I'd be happy to maintain them. That's the hard part. I've got to work on that cycle as it comes up. You do your studying and you try and peak at the right time for the exam. I know a lot of sort of top level technical engineers wash out from things like the GSE and the CCIE program because they've moved on into management or they've moved on to other things. And so attaining it was the goal, but maintaining it isn't necessarily the big deal for them. They've already reached that pinnacle. And I think that's important why things like when they've done the CCIE emeritus, well, after 10 years, you can go to the emeritus status. They don't have that in the SANS Cyber Guardian, which is a shame because there's some guys that have washed out that are still super smart, but they're just in management roles now, not technical. And there's other people that think, hey, we shouldn't take an exam every 4 years, it should be every 1 year. And it's just, I personally don't agree with that. I think we should have an emeritus status for the SANS GSE. But when you're working towards a certification, don't think that you're the only one that's struggling, because everybody struggles. I used to keep sticky notes all over the place. I used to have papers on the wall. It was something, people would walk up to me and I'd be like, are you a firewall? No. Okay, go away then. Are you a switch? No, leave me alone. I'm doing other things. So just understand that it's going to be hard, and it's always much more fun to go out the weekends and go out in the evenings and do whatever you want to do. But it's dedication and sacrifice that gets you to where you need to be or where you want to be. I never say you need to be. Think where you want to be. Some people are happy, sitting on the help desk and they've got their own side hustle and doing other things themselves. So it's really about what you want to do. But I just want you to understand that it never came easy. That anybody that tells you that, and there may be one or two, I don't know, but anybody that tells you that any of these top certifications come easy is not telling the truth as far as I'm concerned. It's hard, it's sacrifice, it does a lot of things. I was lucky because really it's all I knew was taking exams and studying and doing things. So it was just a natural progression. I'm 48 now. I've been doing this since I was 19. So it's not something that you think to yourself, oh, this is going to be easy. But I just want you to understand that, if you are wanting to do exams, sometimes you can start out the small bites, take the easy ones. But then don't think, because I always think, going back to some of the easy ones, they wasn't easy. But I think the difference between some of the easy, what so-called easy ones, and the super hard ones, wasn't that great a deal, to be honest. It was just that it just required a little bit more depth. It wasn't a huge amount more depth, it was just a bit more depth. Because I think some of the easier ones, especially when you're starting out, they put the stuff that they don't know where else to put, they put it in sort of like supposed easy ones. And then it ends up like a Trivial Pursuit on security for the last 20 years. And so sometimes those are the hard ones to do as well. But I just want you to say that, I encourage everybody to learn, especially this journey. It's a lifelong learning journey. Gone are the days where that's it, finished college, done, dusted, don't have to do anything. We can move on and do other things. As I said, it's always going to be something new coming out. It's definitely going to be interesting. So hopefully, give you a little bit of encouragement, and hopefully that answers some of the questions about my journey for certifications and maybe help you towards yours. Thanks.
Shall we play a game?
We got one person online. The workload is enough for like 10 users. I think we got a hacker.
Shall we play a game?
What are they doing to him? Breaking into his mind. It's like hacking a computer. All it takes is time.
Red alert! All hands to battle stations.
Hello, friend.
Welcome to Red Spy 365.
Shall we play a game?